My name is Daniel Sider, and I am standing in front of Megan Duffy, Stephen Knott, Ian Peterson, Colton Luton, Avery Witt, and Winston Duffy. I am doing a presentation analysis on Ich bin ein Berliner. It was given by John F. Kennedy in 1963 in Berlin. With tensions rising during a time of gridlock between two world superpowers, Russia had taken the initiative to try to keep Eastern Berliners from fleeing to Western Berlin with the Berlin Wall. And with war looming on the horizon between the USA and Russia, John F. Kennedy went to Berlin trying to stir up a feeling of unity among American allies in Eastern Europe. As fear of the Communist Party was growing across the globe, JFK helped unite the free world against the Soviet Union with his empowering speech of Ich bin ein Berliner. Now I'll give you a background on JFK. Born in 1917, John F. Kennedy was born into an affluent Irish Catholic family in Massachusetts. He was the second oldest of 9 born to Joseph and Rose Kennedy. Coming from a group of famous siblings like Ted Kennedy and Bobby Kennedy, John, or his friends and family called him Jack Kennedy, was no exception to the group. After graduating from Harvard, Kennedy went and became a U.S. congressman for a few years, from 1947 until 1953. Then went and became a U.S. senator for a few years, where he looked his eyes to the Oval Office, where in 1956 was barely in second place for the Democratic nomination. Then 4 years later in 1960, he was chosen as the nomination and won the general election against Richard Nixon, where he was voted and won and is officially known as the youngest president to hold office. He also is the first and only Catholic president. Although he had a short-lived presidency of about 3 years before being assassinated in Dallas, Texas, he was a part of some crucial points in U.S. history. Commissioning a covert operation to try and overthrow a communist sympathist, Fidel Castro, called the Bay of Pigs, along with handling the Cuban Missile Crisis. He also was trying to combat Russia in the Cold War against Nikita Khrushchev, the Prime Minister of Russia. Also helping with his social viewpoints, Kennedy went and created the Peace Corps. Now I'll describe some of the historical backdrop of the occasion. In June of 1963, JFK was doing a tour of 5 European nations to stir up unity with American allies against the Soviet Union. Right as the Cold War had been heating up, and 2 years after the Berlin Wall was built, Kennedy traveled to Berlin to give one of his most famous speeches of all time. After sort of having a rocky start with Russian relations and Nikita Khrushchev, and also the Cuban Missile Crisis, in his article, Nicholas Mills states that in Berlin, Kennedy showed that he had learned from both confrontations, end quote, as he had handled the situation in West Berlin very well. The message of this speech resounded around the world. His speech was a pivotal turning point in the Cold War. In Mills' article again, he refers to that 2 months after his Berlin speech, the U.S., Great Britain, and Soviet Union signed the Limited Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, end quote. And on the global stage, Kennedy not only addressed both East and Western Berlin, but the world, talking to some of the people who believed that communism was the wave of the future and that communists could be worked with. He frequently asked a rhetorical question to ask them to let them come to Berlin, where he was asking them to come and see how communists really couldn't work and how it was failing in general. In a New York Times article, Ted Widmer states that he ridiculed the wall as evidence of the failure of communism, and later in the article that he whipped the crowd into a frenzy with his promise that Berlin was at the center of the world. In conclusion, JFK's speech helped unite the allies of America to stand firmly against communism and the Red Scare of the Russians, I believe one statement from his speech perfectly sums up the way the people felt about Berliners during this time of the Cold War, and that is 2,000 years ago, the proudest boast was civis Romanus sum, or that I am a Roman citizen. Today, in the world of freedom, the proudest boast is Ich bin ein Berliner, or I am a Berlin citizen. While it is regarded as one of JFK's best speeches, the way he eloquently gave it and addressed the world, I also do believe it is one of the best speeches that helped the free world stand against communism. Again, my name is Daniel Sider. Thank you for your time.